Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for Runaways Season 1, and before I got into this thing, it's gonna be a lot more difficult looking at the fact that we are dealing with a lot of characters. Also, Runaways, really? Why? Before I forget to say this in the actual review, because I'm not recording the review today, why are they picking Runaways of all things? Look, all the other stuff that Marvel TV has done, I can kind of understand, you know? The Defenders characters, it's like, okay, yeah, they have some notoriety. You have, like, Cloak and Dagger, there's some notoriety. Obviously, Agent Coulson and Agent Carter, they're MCU characters and all that stuff. Inhumans is a popular storyline from Marvel, but like Runaways? Who are you people? That was my genuine reaction when I saw the announcement of this show. I was like, who? Who is Runaways? Like, I don't get it. Such a weird thing. But yeah, like I said, a lot happens in the first episode because of the fact that we have a lot of characters. So let's just stop straight into it. So we start off this episode with none of the characters, but instead with a girl named Destiny, as she's going on the bus and she's traveling somewhere, and then she calls home, it seems, but also she doesn't say anything and hangs up, and then she gets harassed by two guys who then want to do stuff to her, and she gets saved by these two ladies who belong definitely to a cult. She even is like, are you guys a cult? And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, they are. They're a cult. Come on, they are such a cult. However, she does decide to go with them, and then 6 months later, Alex is our first character that we meet, and he has apparently been isolating himself after losing someone, apparently, and his parents don't really like that. Then we meet Nico, who wants to go to her sister's room in order to grab something. However, her mom does not allow that kind of stuff, and then she accidentally breaks a trophy, which makes her mom furious. Chase doesn't have good grades, apparently. He had like a C for Spanish, which I'm like, that's technically still like alright, okay? It's like, and apparently the dad is like, hey, if you were afraid of me, you actually get an A. I'm like, why would he be afraid of you? You're his father. This makes no sense. Also, Carolina isn't allowed to go on a school trip because of some Vanity Fair thing, so that's a bit unfair. And then finally we meet the characters Gert and Molly, whose mom being really weird to Molly. By the way, Molly is also adopted, but Molly has cramps, and she's like, oh yeah, just orgasm, that'll get that right out. And I'm like, why do you open your mouth? Sometimes people shouldn't speak. This is one of those times. Speaking of people who shouldn't speak, Gert, she's a lefty lunatic. She is a feminazi, as we call them here, and yeah, I don't like her. But then later on, I feel bad for her, so I'm not heartless, but it's still. Also, apparently this whole crew of characters used to be friends, but then something happened that caused the divide between the characters. Also, Alex wants to have a party at his house to kind of maybe reignite a spark between the group, and his mom is like, yeah, sure. Also, potentially his parents are also part of a cult, because they go into this room with a bunch of red robes, and I'm like, yeah, this looks culty. And we also see some kind of a guy lying in a bed looking horrible. And as Alex tries to get the party idea into the group, it doesn't really go well. Nobody really likes that idea. Also, Molly is trying to do some kind of dancing or whatever, and she fails because she has cramps. She gets to the doctor's office and learns that she has super strength, so that's fun. Alright, I'm interested. I wasn't locked in yet, but now I'm locked in, boys. We got superpowers here. Also, Gert, even though she is like, oh, but why would I be interested if he's interested, you know? Don't put women down and all that stuff, is still looking at his butt, so it's like, yeah, okay. You can talk about all that feminazi stuff, but you are still interested in the jock. And she is. However, he asks the teacher for some tutorage, and the teacher's like, no. So then she offers tutorage tonight, and he's like, okay, yeah, sure. And then as he leaves, his friends are like, hey, there's a party tonight. And it's like, okay, I'll go to the party. And that's where I meant when I said, like, I do feel bad for Gert, even though she is my least favorite character so far on this show. Alex also tries to talk to Nico, and she's just having earbuds in, so she doesn't hear anything. And he's just talking and talking and talking and talking. And it feels like after half an hour of talking, she's finally like, hey, I got earbuds in. I'm like, this could have happened sooner, whatever. And then she just walks away. So that's fun. Also, Alex has a crush on Nico. That is officially confirmed. So Nico goes to the bathroom and she cries there. Caroline is already in there crying, so that's a bit of a fun crying party. And then later on, Caroline has the talk with Vanity Fair, I guess. And then Destiny appears, and yes, definitely a cult. 100% can confirm is cult. Look at the way she talks. That is definitely cultish talking. But she basically gives a speech on how the church helped her and all that stuff. Definitely cult. And Molly goes home and she decides to test her power, which is not really working necessarily until she almost gets crushed by the van. At that point, she can push the van back up to where it needs to go. And yes, she does have super strength. This is the second time it happened. Also, the parents are all part of a pride meeting, and you can already tell that this is bad because it has something to do with pride. And you know what they always say, pride comes before the fall. So yeah, it had to be something to do with pride. It's one of the deadly sins, if I remember correctly, right? Isn't pride one of the deadly sins as well? Like, you should never have too much pride, because that will lead you down the bad alley. I mean, it's usually kind of like where all the bad things come from, because people have too much pride and then everything starts to fall apart. Even though I don't know if I'm allowed to say that because I'm recording this in June, and yeah. So as expected, Chase doesn't go to Gert, and she's just sitting there alone at the coffee shop, and this is where I felt bad, because he went to the party, and Caroline later on also arrives at the party, and then there's a guy there. It's like, hey, take this pill. She grabs the pill, but looks like potentially she took it, and then she starts to dance, and she sees two girls kissing, and she takes off her bracelet, and then her arms start to become like weirdly colored. She got weird color powers. However, then she falls down and gets knocked out, at which point the two friends of Chase, without Chase obviously, we're not gonna implicate Chase in this one, and then one of the friends of Chase, by the way, Chase is not a part of this, we're not gonna make him a part of this. Anyway, he sees that Caroline is lying there on the ground, a very hot chick, so he grabs her, and then with the other friend, once again Chase is not in this, takes her upstairs, which that always leads to something good, right? If you take an unconscious woman upstairs. So Chase sees this and he's like, wait a minute, there's something suspicious going on here. So he follows them, he tries to find them, while one of them is actively trying to unbuckle potentially her. Look, it looked like a skirt, but it may not have been a skirt. Maybe it was a pants, but I'm just gonna say skirt. So he tries to unbuckle the skirt, and I'm like, really? Dude, you can just lift up the skirt. That's the whole point of a skirt, you know? It doesn't have pants. You don't need to take it off. Whatever. Anyway, he's trying to unbuckle it. Chase eventually finds the right room, sees what they are doing, and is like, hey, stop that! And he punches his two friends, who are then like, you will pay for this, as they run away like cowards. He then buckles up her pants and then puts her bracelet back on her arm, which causes her to instantly wake up. So there is some power stuff going on with her as well. And he then takes her away from the party, and he's like, I can take you home. And Caroline's like, I don't want to go home. Also, Gert texts Molly about the fact that she needs to feed the animals, and Molly initially doesn't want to do it, but eventually decides, fine, I'll do it. So she goes down to the animals, feeds them, and then she sees a dinosaur and she runs upstairs. She's like, I don't want to be home. Also, Caroline never took the drugs because eventually she throws it away. And Alex is very upset that no one arrived at his party, which he tells his parents. So that is not really that fun. And also, Nico is on the beach with like a pentagram on the ground because she's trying to summon Dark Anthony Dragon. But he's not coming. He doesn't really care about her. Sorry, wrong franchise. So then later on, they all go to Alex's party, which is not a good party. It's just a party of misery. So then Chase is like, I'm gonna go and grab some alcohol. And it's like, no, don't, because my parents are there. So he goes over there. Parents are not there, so they all go over there. And then they grab some alcohol, and then Alex wants to grab some coasters because, you know, you gotta put some coasters on there. However, he can't really grab the coaster, so he rotates it and it opens up a wall. And I'm like, really? The coaster? That's the most obvious thing. Why would you put the door, like your secret hideout door, into coasters? Like, coasters are the things that you grab in order to put your drink on there. You could have just made it a statue or something like that. Nah, it's the coasters. This is a stupid thing. Anyway, they go down there and see that basically their parents are busy in a cult meeting, and the girl Destiny is there as well. It kind of looks like she doesn't necessarily want to be there. And then they force her to drink something, and she kind of gets knocked out. She gets put in a thing, and then Molly, for some stupid reason, is like, let me see, with a flashlight, which causes the parents downstairs to notice. So the Runaways, well, they run away, and that is where the episode ends. So the Runaways run back to their party. However, they are blocked by a door, and Molly uses her powers in order to be able to open the door, but since everyone was pushing, nobody really noticed that. And Alex is like, okay, you guys go to the party, I'm gonna go and do something. So they go to the party, and then they discuss like what they actually saw. They try to explain it, but then Nico's just like, yeah, our parents just killed someone, and then it becomes dark. So back to episode 1, boys. However, this time it's from a different perspective. It's from the parents' perspective. Yes, we are redoing episode 1. But what we learn is the fact that apparently Chase got hit by his dad back in the day. So that was interesting to learn. And his dad is actually working on the box, and he gets really angry with his wife about the fact that it's like, hey, I don't need help, okay? I don't need help. I'm a genius. So it's like, okay, this guy is sick in the head, and he deserves to be locked up, potentially. Definitely. I mean, all these parents deserve to be locked up. They've been doing this for a while now. I'm getting too ahead of myself. Apparently, there are also some problems with Destiny, as in she's missing, so that isn't really a good thing. And the agent of Frank, he fires him because of the fact that, well, I don't know, maybe he's just not a good client. I wasn't really paying attention. Like I said, a lot happens in this episode, so it's like, it's difficult for me to really get through. To remember everything is kind of difficult. It's just he fires Frank. That's the important part. And also we learn, while he's getting fired, that Leslie is actually the one who owns the church, which actually was already kind of explained in the last episode. Also, Nico's mom wants to use the magic staff that I didn't talk about in the first episode. Speaking of something actually that I did not really talk about, I will say this, the intro song is banging, dude. I think it's great. I love the intro song. It really adds to the mystery of the show. But anyway, she wants to seal off Amy's room, and she seals Dad in there as well, which is not really helpful, but he convinces her not to do that, then maybe we could just put a lock on it instead of magically barricading the place. So then Gert's mom reminds Gert's dad about the fact that, yeah, tonight's the Pride thing. It's like, I don't want to go. I don't really want to go. Can't you just go without me? It's like, no, you have to go. Okay, fine, I'll go. And apparently there are some workers who are working to build something, and then some thugs led by a man named Darius appear here, and it's like, hey, you guys are lucky because you got the day off, and also tell your boss, Jeffrey, who is Alex's dad, about this. So the main construction guy calls Jeffrey, and his wife is like, you have to pay off Darius or do something else because building that building is really important to Pride. So it's like, oh boy, that is not good. That is not good. If it's important to Pride, that means it's not good. So he decides to head over there. Meanwhile, Destiny wants to go to her daughter's birthday. Apparently, she has a daughter, and apparently she's also 17. So, just a wee question here. How old is that daughter of yours? Like, I mean, I know it's been 6 months since you were recruited, but still, how old is your daughter? Like, what? However, Leslie is like, okay, there's only one way I can make her stay. I'm gonna make you Ultra in the cult. In the cult. I'm just gonna call it the cult. In the cult, you're gonna go Ultra, so that causes her to stay. So Jeffrey goes over to Darius, and Darius is like, this is a little bit light for 50,000. It's like, I'm not paying you any money. That is a video of your nan's home, okay? Do anything to me? She blows up because I'm still a bad guy technically, you know, since he's sacking 17-year-olds. Yeah, okay, you are the bad guy. So Darius caves in. However, once he gets into the car, we learn that there was something nefarious happening here, because the reason actually that he wanted to take the phone specifically earlier on was the fact that he was downloading off of the phone. So we haven't seen the last of Darius just yet. He wasn't just a thug that is a one episode only. He may come back later on. Meanwhile, Frank goes over to his wife, and he's like, I want to go Ultra, okay? I want to be more important in the cult. And she's like, no. But the fact that you want to do this is actually a good step, okay? We'll talk about this when I get back, because I got cult things to do. Bye. So then it's time for the cult meeting. However, Jeffrey does have some issues killing 17-year-olds now that their kids are actually about 17 years old. So it's like, maybe we should stop it. And it's like, well, if everything goes correctly, this is the last one. So it's like, how long have you been killing 17-year-olds? Like, what is wrong with you? I mean, yes, they make the excuse, well, they're drug addicts or something like that, you know? They had nobody, so they're not really gonna be missed at all. It's like the unimportant ones, but it's still, you're taking a human life. Also, why did they all have to be 17-year-olds? So they go downstairs in order to do the cult stuff, and I was 100% correct. Like, initially, Destiny is on board, but once she takes that first sip, she's like, no, I don't want to do it. So then Leslie forces her to drink more, and then they put her in there, and then Jeffrey stupidly is like, I'm sorry, and it's like, that's not a good thing. That means you're gonna die. And she's like, I don't want to die, please. But they force her in there, and then they activate the machine, but then the flash happens. So then Alex's parents put on their regular clothes in order to head over there in order to see what was up. But it seems like nothing really was up, because Alex was able to divert their attention because of the fact that he decided to make it look like the power short-circuited. And that's where the flash came from. I mean, it's something, right? It's smarter than anything else. And it works. And also, they're technically playing Twister, but it works. It works. Also, Alex later on has to look at the photo, and the photo didn't really show anything. It's a blurry photo. So like, that didn't work. Maybe that's also because of the spell that was done by the staff. So then the parents and the children are all in the main hallway. However, Victor, Chase's dad, is still downstairs with the machine because he was gonna clean up on his own. However, then he heard some banging from the machine, so he opens it up. Turns out Destiny is still alive, and he's like, you shouldn't be here. So, yeah, that's interesting. Also, Nico has an especially hard time with this, but she has to go back to her parents in order to act normal, which is funny. It's like, act normal, and Gert is like, I will go with you, Mrs. Mom. It's like, it's not acting normal. Just act normal. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. That was actually a soundbite that I heard a lot, so that just popped into my head. So Frank secretly looks at his wife's agenda to see what she has, and she spends a lot of time in a certain room. So he tries to get in, but he can't get in, and then another guy tells him to leave because he's not allowed up there. And also Jeffrey has a lot of issues with the fact that they keep killing 17-year-olds. It's like, wow, you are the only one here with a conscience, it seems. But his wife tells him not really to worry at all. And also all of the kids, we see them having trouble with this as well. However, as his wife leaves, he steps on a hairpin that belonged to, I think it was Molly, potentially. We're just gonna say Molly. Seems like a Molly thing to do. So, yeah, there is some evidence of that being there. Now, I have a way to get out of this. Very simple, okay? You're just gonna say that some of them wanted to get alcohol. And preferably the ones who would not get beaten up by their parents. So not Chase. But, like, you could say that Molly went in there in order to grab a glass from the shelf, and that's where a hairpin accidentally dropped. There are ways out of this, but it's gonna be a little bit annoying, the fact that it's like, we found the hairpin. So it turns out that 10 years ago was the death of Molly's parents. So in the present day, the gang meets on the beach, and Caroline gets a message from Destiny. However, some of them think that it's actually fake in order to make it seem like Destiny's okay, even though she is definitely not okay. So we need to investigate our parents. However, Gert is able to squeeze her way into Chase's part of the plan, because she's gonna be his lookout while he searches the dad's place. Meanwhile, Victor apparently has been working late ever since the sacrifice, as you could call it. And also he's had some dreams about Destiny. So something happened, that's for sure. Also, Nico's mom wants to spend quality time with her husband, which he is kind of fine on, but he's like, we should also invite Nico, who also did not get the message because of the fact that she had her phone off all day. So as Gert and Chase are looking through the lab, eventually Gert finds some scratches on the floor, and it's like, alright, here we go. We found the box. And then they use x-ray goggles, which by the way, she already used on him. However, he is not allowed to do it on her, which is double standard, most certainly. Anyway, they find out that the box is empty, so maybe Destiny is fine. There is a chance, or she's dead and the body's been dumped. That's also. However, Destiny could also be at her place because of what Molly said, because Molly talked about the whole dinosaur experience, or at least the monster. It's like, well, could be at your place. So now they go over in order to check out her place. Meanwhile, Alex's mom is like, I'm gonna talk to Molly. And also, apparently, they used some kind of serum on Frank, and that is why he is kind of the way that he is. Apparently, something went wrong with him. Also, Nico decides that she does not want to go on the date, and is like, oh, you two need date night, right? So leave, go on date night, have fun. And the reason that she does that is because she wants to explore the staff. So she goes into her mom's office, I guess you could call it an office. I don't really know if it's called an office or study or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, she's looking around in order to find ways to open up the thing so she can get the staff. However, she can't really find anything until she opens up a drawer and sees her sister's diary, which is hidden apparently, and that causes the thing to open up. So she then grabs it, and then she looks through the diary, finds a snowflake, and then it starts to snow all around her because of the magic staff. And then she calls Alex for help. Also, Molly gets confronted by Alex's mom, and she tries her best in order to lie, and it kind of seems to work, but not really. So she's like, I need to go to the bathroom. She tries to escape, which okay, yeah, sure. However, you need to kind of work on your powers, because of the fact that if you this is not really good for the superhero business, okay? Look, I have super strength, but every time I use it, I fall asleep. That's not good for business, okay? But she breaks her way out. She pulls out the toilet, uses it as a stepping stool, so she can break out the bars for the window in order to escape. However, because of the fact that she falls asleep, she gets caught. However, she lies, but this time it's a different lie. She used the lie where I went into the study in order to see if you guys were gone so that the others could steal alcohol from you. And that's why I dropped my pen. again. And the mom decides to believe it. So, got away with it, boys. They're none the wiser. Also, on the date night, this is what I wrote. This is all I'll say, and I'm not gonna elaborate any further. Underwear ruins the date night. There you go. I'm not gonna elaborate further. So the husband leaves, and apparently he does that because he wants to hook up with Janet. So yeah, they are both cheating, which is like, why would you? Are you stupid? Okay, first of all, one of them is a witch with a staff that who knows what can do, and the other one is an insane, abusive lunatic. So I don't really think that the cheating aspect is such a good idea, boys, and it's just not gonna be good for either of you. So Gert and Chase are exploring the lab, and they eventually find a door that he cannot look through, and he opens up the door, and a raptor jumps out. However, it does seem to be listening to Gert, which is kind of weird because who wants to do that? And then the raptor escapes, which is like, oh boy, this is not gonna be good. I mean, technically you could still make it look like you were feeding the animals, or just checking in on the animals, and then you heard a noise and opened it up to see what the noise was, and then it escaped. Like, there are still some ways you can kind of get out of that situation with your parents, but you gotta be a little bit more creative. And then to end the episode, Destiny's bodies is found on the beach, which was already prophesied by Cloak and Dagger Season 2, which means the cult needs another sacrifice. Ah boy, this is not gonna end well, is it? Also, Nico and Alex were really good at cleaning up all that snow. I'm surprised with them. Maybe they can come by my house in order to clean my room. Also, Nico and Alex were really good at cleaning up all that snow. I'm surprised with them. Maybe they can come by my house in order to clean my room. So we go back to the year 2015, which is actually the year when Amy died, R.I.P. the gal. And Nico, younger Nico, wanted to call an ambulance. However, her mom knocks her out with the staff, magic style. And then later on the camera, Nico sees that a mystery man is going to handle everything. And he's bald, if that wasn't bad enough. But he'll come back later on because he's an important figure. So now the gang knows about Destiny, and they're Skyping on WizTalk, which is apparently what it's called. Because of copyright stuff, you can't call it Skype or anything like that. Does that even still exist, Skype? I don't even know if that still exists. However, Chase is determined to find a way to defend himself if need be, so he continues working on the gauntlets, which are later on called Fistigons, which is a stupid name, but whatever. Alex also tries to once again infiltrate the secret sacrificing layer. However, the secret switch does not work anymore, which is a good thing, because why would it be coasters? That is the dumbest idea ever, but whatever. However, Alex does find a gun inside a drawer, so he just takes that instead. Also, Victor has apparently kidnapped the girl. However, when he brings the girl to the squad, I guess, the girl's gone, so that's a bit of a weird one. We need a new one. And also, Gert's parents are out looking for the raptor. So Nico wants to go to the cops about the whole parent situation and Destiny's murder and all that stuff. And initially, Alex is like, yeah, you shouldn't really do that because of the fact that, well, I mean, do we really have any proof? I mean, we don't really have full-on proof. And also, we were the only ones who could have possibly seen anything. So if we speak, they'll know that it was us and then we are in danger potentially. Also at school, the scumbags want an apology from Chase for being punched by Chase, and Chase like, I'm not giving you an apology. You know what I'm gonna give? I'm gonna give you another punch. However, that gets broken up. Also, apparently the girls at school think that Caroline got drunk and took the boys upstairs for some fun time, and she is convinced that that did not happen, which I am also 100% convinced about. But that is something that can really happen. Now, I'm not saying that you should always believe women, because the thing is, women can also lie. However, this time the woman did not lie, and also she didn't even know what happened because she was knocked out the whole time. But this is a horrible thing that happens to women, and I'm happy that the show actually talks about it. However, what I'm also happy about is that it shows Chase as a character as well, because it can be so easy to paint all men as the bad guys, but because of the fact that we have Chase, it's like, no, there are good men and there are bad men. It's just which is which, technically. Also, Frank is worried about Leslie potentially cheating, and then she tries to convince him of otherwise. It's like, don't worry, there's nothing wrong. Also, would you like to ascend? And all that stuff in order to kind of push the topic away. So then Gert apparently has members for her horrible club, and that she completely forgot about because she is smitten by a man, and that kind of makes a woman's brain kind of go back to normal, you know? Not really all about all this patriarchy nonsense. It doesn't really exist anyway. However, she forgot about it completely, and then Caroline comes in order to ask a question. She immediately abandons the club in order to go to Caroline, and these are the the only two of the Runaways, I guess you could call them, which they are not really officially called, but still, they also haven't really ran away. So first they need to run away, then they can be called Runaways, but we're gonna call them Runaways anyways. These are the only two that actually are kind of convinced that their parents are innocent. So they go together to Caroline's house in order to be able to find proof of innocence. And they ask Alex along, and this is when Alex actually goes to Nico in order to back her up. So they get into Caroline's home. They try the computer, which apparently is there because of the fact that normally the mom takes the computer with her. However, this time she did not. However, they need some hacking stuff, so they will later on give this bad boy to Alex so that he can hack it. And then Chase arrives at the location and basically kicks Gert out because he needs to have a private conversation with Caroline. And he starts off by saying, I left the team. And afterwards, he also tells her the truth about what really happened. However, he does say exactly what happened. Basically, they took you upstairs, but nothing happened because I intervened. And then I buckled you back up and put on the bracelet, and that is when you woke up. And then she's like, okay, but I want to show you something. And if I get knocked out again, I need someone that I can trust. And it's like, yes, Chase is someone that you can trust. So she takes off her bracelet and just starts glowing colors, mainly pink, but still glowing colors. And it's like, oh my god, or maybe you are radioactive, which I think is the funniest thing, that is what his mind goes to first. He's scared because maybe she's radioactive or something like that. Like, yeah, sure, why not? But I'm happy about this. But these people need to stop getting knocked out when they use their powers. It's very bad for the superhero business. So Alex arrives at the police station to back Nico up. They tell it to the cops some stuff, and then they get put in a waiting room. However, later on they have to leave because of the fact that the mystery man is apparently in charge of the Destiny case. And I told you the Baldy was gonna come back into play. So there is yeah, the parents also have the cops under their payroll in a sense, at least that one. So that's gonna be a little bit of a problem. Meanwhile, Tina has also been investigating the Yorks, which is Gert's parents, and apparently she has found something quite interesting. So Molly at home, she hears something, she goes to investigate, finds the raptor, punches it into the ceiling, and then before the fight can really begin, Gert comes in and stops it and is like, we finally had an action scene, whatever, you know what? But it officially confirms that the raptor listens to Gert. So then the parents come in and see everything happening and the fact that the raptor listens to Gert, and they are amazed by it. However, they also want to leave immediately because they want to stop doing the whole evil stuff. However, as they are talking about the fact that they need to leave, Tina arrives and is like, oh, you got a cabin in the woods, how nice, and you've been sending money over there in order to, as a little getaway, a little hideaway, as you would say, as you could potentially say. This is bad, okay? I know about it, and so can the club if you don't cease these plans immediately. So that didn't really work. And also, Alex hacks into the laptop and they find something called Runaways. Like, the show. And also, these are all the victims. And apparently they've been doing this for at least 15 years. They've, like every 6 months it looks like, they've been kind of sacrificing 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds. I don't know. They said that Destiny was 18 years old, but still, they've been sacrificing these people. So there you go. Official proof. However, his car is making noise. So Alex goes outside in order to check out the car. And also, Nico then calls Caroline about the bad news. However, the noise from the car does not want to stop, so she goes outside and hears Alex a little bit and sees a vehicle drive away. And yeah, Alex has been kidnapped, and now the Runaways have to meet up in order to potentially save Alex. My goodness, this show is ramping up. The mystery is getting bigger and bigger. This is the Kingdom. Couldn't help myself. It's just whenever I see the word kingdom, it pops up in my head. Anyway, so this episode is the backstory episode for Jeffrey and Darius. Well, kind of. It's a little bit of backstory. There's not really much. Not like a full episode dedicated to the backstory. But let's get into this, shall we? So, 18 years ago, Jeffrey and Darius were both in prison. Obviously, Jeffrey for the fact that he killed someone. And also, his future wife is actually his lawyer at this point. And he gets a visit from a man, also his lawyer, but a man who wants to buy a property off of him that is worth basically nothing. However, he kind of flips it around and be like, why don't we partner up? And it's like, well, partnering with a criminal in prison is not really gonna be good. And then Catherine's like, but what if I can get him out in about a month? It's like, now that sounds interesting. Maybe we can make a deal then. So Jeffrey goes up to Darius and he's like, hey, I need you to tell the guards that you were the one who killed the guy instead of me. I need you to take the fall for me. However, don't worry about it. I will protect your family. I will be there for them. I will give them the resources that they need, because I could be a very rich man if I get out there. And Darius agreed to it. Meanwhile, in present day, Darius was also revealed to be the one one who kidnapped Alex, because he's gonna show him who his daddy really is. Meanwhile, Carolina has already arrived here, and Gert and Molly arrive later. Chase doesn't come because the fact he's too busy with his daddy. But anyway, the gang is here, almost all of it, and Nico uses the staff in order to find out where Alex is, and then a beam, kind of like a heat wave, kind of comes from the staff and goes in the directions like that's the way that we need to go. Meanwhile, Victor wants to work on something special because he got inspired by his son, who is terrifyingly afraid of him, and he wants to work on that with his son, which is actually a good bonding moment, and that is why he doesn't really care about the phone. Chase, pick up that phone. The gang needs ya. So then basically, I'll narrow down the whole conversation between Alex and Darius to like basically one sentence. Jeffrey forgot about Darius. After he got out of prison, he abandoned him, basically. The family did not get the backup that they need. So there you go. That was basically why he was mad. So this changes the perspective of Alex a little bit. And then Darius takes Alex's phone and calls Jeffrey up in order to be like, hey, I got your son. We needed to make a trade. And then Jeffrey's like, I'm gonna call someone. And he calls for, it sounds like backup, but it's not backup. I guess he just called for a gun or something like that. But anyway, at the meetup, they're waiting outside. Alex talks to this one kid who is there as well, who was apparently smart enough to be able to hack the phone. However, then a shootout happens where Jeffrey basically shoots at them in order to get his son back, which is like, dude, you gotta shut your son. This is very bad. However, Alex shoots the kid that he just had a conversation with because the fact he was about to kill his dad. So he did that. However, then he gets a gun to the back of his head and he gets put back into the vehicle and they drive off, and the gals follow them. Also, after Chase is done with his dad, he sees the phone that he has had some missed calls, so he calls them up and is like, I'm coming. He grabs the gauntlets, the fistigons, I guess, and he heads over there. So the car is stopped and Nico gets out in order to permanently stop the car with the staff, but the staff doesn't really want to fully listen to her. So then Molly gets out and she just lifts the car all Jessica Jones style, at which point the bad guys get out and they are ready to attack, but then Caroline takes off her bracelet in order to use her light power in order to blind them. So the other bad guy, the driver anyway, he runs away, but Darius stays behind, and Alex also gets out, and then Chase arrives and he blasts Darius with his fistigons, and now the whole squad's together and Darius is ready to just shoot them all dead. However, then Nico uses a protection spell, I guess, with the staff, and the bullets don't work, but it's like, dude, you were trying to kill kids, what's wrong with you? But this is enough for Darius to be like, that's too much for me, I'm gone. So he leaves. Alex goes back to his dad, and his dad is trying to get the kid that was shot into the car, and Alex wants to go with his dad, but his dad is like, no, you take the bus home. Then he calls his wife and is like, hey, we need to get Pride together. I got a live one, but I don't know for how long. So then the gang is all talking about, oh, superpowers, yay, we're actually superhero people, yay. But then Alex is like, we should save the kid that was trying to kill my dad and also was part of my kidnapping. He needs to be saved. So he eventually convinces the gang to save the guy, so they head back to Alex's place. Also, Pride has assembled. They give the kid the drink that they need to give him, and then they put him in the machine. So then Molly decides to break through the door because of the fact that the coaster doesn't work anymore, and they head downstairs only to find out that this time the ceremony was not at Alex's place, but instead it was somewhere else, and we learned that it was actually at Pride itself, at the church. So then later on, Alex tries to hack a little bit more into the computer, which doesn't necessarily work, and also it worked. The kid is gone and the mystery man is better now, I guess. So everyone leaves, but also the reason that Alex can't hack the video file, because apparently there are video files, because of the fact that it's stored on the most secure network, Nico's parents' network. So then later on, Jeff comes home after everyone is already gone, and him and Alex get into a little bit of an argument about the past. I like how Alex is like, you are just a horrible person, without even having to bring up the whole Pride stuff. He just brings up the other stuff where with Darius, he's just like, you're just a horrible person. And then the dad's like, this is my house, and it's like, oh yeah, don't touch me. So he's now afraid of his dad, because if his dad is gonna betray his best friend, he might also betray me. Who knows? And Alex is like, I'm gonna sleep in the guest house. Molly and Gert also go to sleep by the dinosaur, which sure, why not? I've seen Jurassic Park. There's not a safer place to sleep than next to a velociraptor. And also Nico gets caught trying to put the staff back, and then the mom is like, keep the staff, okay? Keep the staff. And also Victor has apparently finished off his time machine, and he's like, show us Los Angeles in the future. However, it doesn't work, so then he throws the thing away, and then also reveals to his son that he has a brain tumor. Couldn't have happened to a better person. I am not gonna feel sad about this. Jake's like, no, dad. And I'm like, good. Good. Couldn't have happened to a worse person. Like, seriously, why are we sad about this? Is this supposed to be a sad moment? He's a prick, which is the most child-friendly way that I can say this, but he's a prick, okay? He's not a good guy. I'm not gonna shed a tear about the fact he has a brain tumor. That's just basically karma calling. However, he needs to keep that from his mother. And also, turns out that the thing actually did work, because as the two leave, the time machine shows LA being completely destroyed. So, yeah, the future is looking a wee bit bleak. Also, Frank failed to make Ultra sad for him, and also we learned that Corpse Man was actually the mystery man who wanted to buy the building from Jeffrey earlier on, so there's a mystery behind that. And also he's like, I want to see her. And then according to the face of Leslie, yeah, okay, she cheated on Frank, and that guy is Carolina's dad, isn't he? Or am I wrong? Hey, I could be wrong, but also we're halfway through, which feels weird. The pacing of this season is really slow, I will say that. So far, I've enjoyed it, but the fact that there's still another half before they run away is kind of weird. Sorry. Anyway, let's see what the next episode's like, because we got halfway to go. Alright, so 15 years ago, Jonah, which is actually the name of the mystery man, he reveals a secret basement under a house, and he also gives that house to Jeff and also Carolina. And then we get to see the first sacrifice, and some of them have issues with it and some of them do not, but they all understand one thing. They've made a deal with the devil, and they gotta honor that deal no matter what. So then in present day, Jonah wants to go public in a sense. He wants to go outside, spread his wings, and actually explore the Pride event that is coming up. And yeah, Leslie is like, please don't, please don't. He also wants to meet his daughter, and it's like, please don't. And well, she has no choice. Also, Alex has a plan for the party that they are all going to, and that is the fact that he is going to hack into the Wiz server, because this might be the only time when we can actually have access to that place. But before the party can begin, Nico gets a bit of training from her mom, and I love what she does when she starts the training, because she has the staff and it's like, okay, think of anything that you want to happen, and then afterwards her mom speaks but no sound comes out, because Nico, that was what she wanted her mom to shut it. Which I think is funny. Which I think that's the first thing she thinks of. She couldn't have made it snow again. No, she just instantly does that. It's like, okay, cool. Also, Carolina has a little bit of a bonding moment with Frank, and which I can now officially call Frank because he's not her dad. And she's talking about like a book with like this glowing woman, and which is obviously, you know, a representation of her in a way, as you could say. However, she then also asks Frank, like, why are you not in Pride like every other parent under the sun? And he's like, I don't know, I was never invited into Pride. Which I'm like, good for you. Good for you. That still means you are clean, my boy. Yes, Frank is the only one that officially is clean for now, because all the other parents who are part of Pride, you know, Pride is evil. So they are evil, and he is not part of Pride. I mean, yes, he's part of the church, but that doesn't necessarily make the church specifically evil, because it's not like everyone knows in the church that sacrifices are going to happen. So a lot of them believe the cultish stuff, but they don't know that the sacrifices are being done. So it's still good. Frank is the good guy right now. He is for now. Unless maybe later on that changes. Maybe in season 2. But he's a good guy now. Victor also listens basically to his wife and Robert cheating. Well, talking about cheating. Not necessarily cheating. And also Robert gives her a gun in case of the fact that he abuses her again, so that she can, you know, kill him if need be. So now it is almost time for the party, and the kids all meet up, and they're like, oh hey, my dad has a limo, mine also has a limo, mine also has a limo. And then it's like, oh hey Nico, why don't I pick you up? And then Chase is like, hey Caroline, why don't I pick you up along the way? And then Gert becomes once again one of them insane people, and is like, oh, but the carbon stuff. And at this point I was just like, we need 6 limos. I don't care, we need 6 limos. Each one of you goes in a separate limo and does drives 3 times around the block. Okay, now the moment that woman opens her mouth, I want the opposite to happen. We need to, but no, she gets the gang to convince that we all need 1 limo, which, yeah, okay, sure, why not? Also, as Alex is dressing up for the party, he is still angry at his dad, and yeah, I don't know if that's ever really gonna be fixed. So it's time for the Pride event, or as some people call it, the evil event. And with some people, I mean all of the good people in this who watch the show and also in the show, because Pride is evil, as you know. Also, Carolina is definitely definitely from the Dutch city known as Lesbos, because she's a lesbian. And, surprise, surprise, Stanley Driver, boys! There's no way Stanley actually appears in the show. Look, man, the fact that he appears in movies is fine and all, but like, when he appears in a TV series, it's an event, because he barely does that shit, because he didn't appear in the Defender Saga, neither did he appear in, like, Cloak and Dagger. I think he actually appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and in Agent Carter, but like, outside of that, he doesn't necessarily appear, but it's like, it's Stanley, the boy. He was just like driving the limo. My man. So Frank meets Jonah and has, after Jonah takes his wife away from him, has flashbacks of the fact that he actually saw his wife cheating. And while in the process of cheating, while Frank was watching in a sense, she told Frank to leave as she continued on with the cheating. So it's like, okay, so she has no remorse in that sense. Because like in the movies, a lot of the times when cheating gets uncovered, it's like, oh no. But here it was like, hey, leave, close the door. It's like, okay, you just don't have any remorse at all, or you're not scared about being caught. Cool. Fantastic. This might also be why Frank was never part of the inner circle of pride. So now it is time for the hacking squad that eventually turns out to exclusively be Nico, Alex, and Gert. They are the hacking team. So they go upstairs in order to hack the place, and Gert becomes a distraction, which is like, really? Okay, sure, why not? We do have some creepiness later on with Gert. Well, not this. She's not the creepy one this time around. We get a bit of Quagmire time in a way. But she distracts the one guy behind the desk so that Nico and Alex can go to the server room. Turns out the server room, it doesn't really have any plugins, so they can't really get anything out of the server room. So then Nico is like, what about my mom's office? So they go over there. Also, Carolina is not having a good day because of the fact that she grabs a bottle, and she's upset because earlier she also had a bit of an argument with Gert about the fact that, well, Gert is like, hey, I think you are into Nico, which is true. And I think that's a great thing. Yeah, but you only think that's a great thing so that you can have Chase. It's like, I don't want Chase. Like, yeah, you do. Don't lie. So she grabs a bottle, goes upstairs. Chase sees it and follows her upstairs, where she has a bit of a panic attack about her life. And I'm like, well, I mean, you are part of a church. Usually they kind of look down upon the gay people, so I understand why she's having a panic attack about, I guess, the revelation that she's gay. But she then sits on the edge, and eventually she drops the bottle and falls trying to catch it. However, thankfully, Chase was able to remove the bracelet, so now she can fly. Apparently, that's part of her power too. She can glow, she can shoot glowy stuff, and she can fly. That's what she can do. Okay, cool. And she's gay to boot. So then the parents get thanked, and Victor is having brain problems again. So then it's like, oh, hey, Victor wants to have the floor. It's like, look, everybody knows who I am, okay? Hey, my wife's cheating with her husband. That's just happening. And then he falls down because of his brain tumor, I guess, which actually Chase sees, so he goes over to his dad. So then Pride takes his dad to a special room, and they need Jonah's help. So Leslie goes in order to convince Jonah. Jonah agrees because of the fact that Victor is still very useful to the team. Also, Tina goes upstairs into her office, which is where Alex and Nico are, so they are still hiding, but she's just there to cry. That's all she's there for. She's there to get out a big cry, and I'm like, I kind of understand. Well, look, I'm never gonna defend cheating. Cheating is absolutely disgusting and should never be defended, first of all. But second of all, you have been very distant, as we saw at the beginning of the show. So something like this happening is not necessarily out of the blue. I still think he should have gotten with a divorce first and then gotten with a woman, but that's still, but like, it's like there is some basis for it, even though it's still horribly wrong and he shouldn't have done it. But anyway, Jonah comes in and he has a special cure for the brain tumor, and Chase gets asked, well, kind of forced to leave the room. So then he uses the special thing, which apparently was a special cocktail from someone who had a fantastic immune system, and the way that he looks, I'm like, that's probably your blood, right? That's like your DNA. That's what you're doing to him. Cool. So then the squad meets up, and Alex has gotten the data, so that's good. And then it's time to leave the party, but Victor is acting a little bit weird because he's all happy after announcing to the world, yo, my wife cheats on me. And also Jonah meets Caroline for the first time, which he is happy about. And to end the episode, Molly reveals a little bit too much to Alex's mom, because because she goes over and she's like, look, I need information about my parents before it's too late. Also, I totally did not see anything at all. And then later on, Alex's mom goes to his dad. It's like, hey, yeah, Molly did see the whole sacrificing thing, so it wasn't a fluke. So, oopsie. So, 25 years ago is when Victor met Janet, and then we cut to the birth of Chase, and then we cut to the first time that Victor hit Chase because of the fact that Chase was upset that his dad missed the lacrosse game that he was doing. And it's like, how dare you? Hits him. He even like punches him, and the kid just goes into the window. And then after that, it's like, say that again. It's like, he says something. I forgot what he said, but he did say something. He gets punched again. So yeah, okay. I don't care about Victor. Victor can die for all I care. I couldn't care less. However, then Victor wakes up, and the time machine apparently works, and he gets a message from his son where he's warning him not to pick up the Fistigons, which, well, that has to do with the end of the episode, so we don't really need to worry about that being like a waiting game or something like that. So Alex's mom wants to know if Alex knows because of Molly, you know? So she's kind of snooping around in the room while also technically cleaning the room as a little bit of a setup. But eventually, Alex just grabs his laptop right before his mom is like, wait a minute, that could be the answer, and just leaves. So yeah, not suspicious at all. Don't worry about it. I mean, he could have made something up about homework or something like that. Also, today is the open house day where actually Chase's dad is going to attend the open house as well, which both Chase and his mom are like, wait, what? He's going? Because he never wants to go. Also, Robert's in love with Janet, and by the way, the love is not returned. So there you go. That's that plot line done. I could not care less about this whole cheating plot line. I'm sorry, but I don't care. I didn't know if I was supposed to care or not. Like, I don't really care. Okay, they're cheating. So what? These are horrible people, technically, because they have been for 15 years sacrificing potentially 17-year-olds. I don't care if they cheat. Okay, it's just they're horrible people. I'm not gonna feel sorry for them at all. Also, apparently, Jonah gave Frank some healing gloves, which Leslie is very upset about, and later on goes over to Jonah in order to want an explanation for why he did it and all that stuff. But then Jonah kind of deflects with the whole like, oh yeah, you are important. You need to keep the gang together, okay? The Pride gang needs to be kept together. So that is her next job in order to fix things between Robert and Tina and also the other couple. But the other couple's easier to do because it seems like Victor might actually be a happy person for now. So at least that side is fixed, but the other side is not fixed at all. So then Molly has a little bit of a panic attack, and she basically tells the squad, yeah, hey, I told your mom about the fact that I know by accident. So the whole squad is upset. Molly leaves, wants to join the dance club. The dance club is like, okay, fine, you can join us if you, you know, wash towels. Like, okay, so you're just gonna use her like that. Cool, great. Gert's parents are also doing research into Jonah's miracle serum. They apparently took some of that, or actually took some of his blood, and they come to an amazing discovery. But then Dale wants to hug his wife, and he accidentally splashes the DNA sample on his arm, and he either becomes drunk or high. You can choose which one it is, but yeah, it's not going well for him. He's like, the world's wonderful, my beautiful wife, and this can hold the cure to like eternal life, and I want to live it with my beautiful wife. And I'm like, ah, boy, he's not okay. He is definitely he's definitely on drugs, let's be honest there. Also, Jonah reveals to Leslie that the church is almost nearing its end, and that pride is all that matters. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you were the bad guy, so that makes sense, because the fact that pride is still a bad thing, you know, pride comes before the fall and all that stuff, so the deadly sins and all that stuff, so yeah. However, at least the cult seems to be almost done, which I don't know what that means, but I guess that is what we're gonna be figuring out in the next potentially 3 episodes. And also, Frank, he's like, I want to have some stuff from the stores, and he finds an old desk, and inside of it he finds a picture of like a young Leslie with like an older Jonah, and it's like, wait a minute, what's happening between the two? Yeah, this is not going well, okay? This is exactly what it looks like in that sense. He knew her when she was young, so that's not good. So it's open house time, and later on in the open house, first of all, I like how Victor is like, hey, can I say thank the teachers for what an amazing job they did to my son? It's like, okay, cool. He just interrupts everyone to say that. It's like, well, we welcome the feedback from all parents. And I was just like, yeah, as long as they're, you know, praising you, sure. But eventually Leslie gets over to Tina, and she's like, hey, Jonah wants you to make up with your husband. And I'm I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So basically, the gist of it is the fact the devil wants you to take your husband back. That never sounds good. But she's not really okay with it because of the fact that she's the only one here who actually has a reasonable response, kind of. Because later on, Victor sees Robert and shakes his hand, but then also kind of like crushes his hand. So it's I don't know how he feels about it, but he's also, on the drug of Jonah. So I don't really know how he feels in any situation. But like, at least Tina is having a good response to the fact that her husband cheats, where it's like, get out of my house, which is the normal response. But the devil wants you to take your husband back. You don't say no to the devil after you've made deals with him. Also, the Wilders talk to the Yorks about the fact that Molly knows, and that apparently in the Hernandez's will, there was apparently a place where they can send Molly. So they have to send her over there before Jonah figures it out, because if Jonah learns that the kids know, or she knows, that's gonna spell some bad stuff for Molly. And then before the open house is fully finished, Victor pays a visit to the coach of the lacrosse team, and he's like, you are going to put my son back on the team. Is that clear? And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought that Chase left of his own accord because of the fact that he didn't want to be with these disgusting people. Was he kicked off the team? I thought, like I said, I thought he left voluntarily. I didn't know he was kicked off the team. But the coach's like, yeah, okay, fine. And also, Frank wants to know the truth about Jonah. And then Leslie reveals, yes, he is the one that is spoken of in our cult textbooks. He is the one, as you could say. So the Yorks are packing Molly's stuff, and Molly doesn't want to go. But thankfully, which is the first time I might actually say that, Gert is there in order to stop Molly from going all superpowered on the parents. So she might be kicked out, but we don't know yet. Like I said, 3 episodes left. And also, to end the episode, Chase's dad once again becomes abusive. However, Chase dodges the punch and punches his dad in the face, but then the dad picks up the fistagon, which he wasn't supposed to do according to the future message, and hits Chase with it, and then is ready to, in a way, kill Chase, but then gets shot by his wife. And yeah, okay, thanks for the save, Mom. Ah, boy, this episode. Yeah, this episode is not really my favorite. I will say that right now because of the fact that when Molly is the most interesting character in an episode, you know something is a little bit off, okay? When she has like 2 minutes of screen time in total. Anyway, Alex finally reveals how he got the password to Nico's mom's office. And that is because of the fact that back in the day, Amy apparently had hacked her mom's stuff. And her mom, in return, hacked Amy's laptop in order to see what she was doing. And that caused her laptop to act up when, playing Star Wars Battlefront. Hashtag not sponsored. And apparently that's how he learned the password from Amy. We don't really get much more out of this other than a little bit more at the end of the episode. But basically, Amy did not do such good things, and her suicide may not have been a suicide after all. Meanwhile, in present day, basically everyone outside of the Yorks and also Leslie and Jonah, they don't arrive, but everyone else from Pride arrives at Victor's place because they got a text message saying tsunami. And they're like, oh no, what happened? We have to save Victor, but Jonah cannot figure out. That's kind of a lot of this episode until, he does. Meanwhile, Nico is gonna find Amy's backpack and her phone because those were missing. The laptop was erased, but the phone and the backpack, they were missing. Also, Molly gets left with Graciela, I think her name was, or whatever. I don't know. I have no idea how to pronounce that name. But anyway, she gets left with someone who is now going to take care of her because otherwise, Jonah might actually kill her just like he could do to one of them in this episode. Who knows? However, then the Yorks have to leave because of, tsunami being texted to them. And also Chase tries to call Gert, which is his first choice. Weird choice, sure, but whatever. And then when she doesn't pick up because of the fact that she is with the raptor, he decides to call Carolina instead. However, at the end of that phone call, he's like, you know what? Don't come, okay? Just stay away. And also, Pride didn't want Leslie to find out, but because Leslie is outside the door of her daughter listening in, she now knows that something is up over at that place. So she heads over there anyway, which they're not happy about. However, she's not gonna tell Jonah either, so this is good. Also, the woman who Molly got left behind with gives Molly a note that belonged to her parents that she was only supposed supposed to give when Molly came by this house. So now that she's here, here's your letter. And in it, it basically is a key. And also it says, find your stuffed animal. And Molly doesn't really understand what that means until later on when she has to go to bed. But she's like, wait a minute, I lost my stuffed animal at the train station. Is there a train station nearby? And the woman is like, yeah. And then it's like, but we can do that tomorrow. Yeah, we can't do that tomorrow because Molly sneaks out. She's about to punch her way out. Then she's like, oh, hey, I can open up the window. Cool. So Leslie calls Frank with his healing gloves in order to heal Victor, but instead he accidentally kills him. So that's a bit of a shame. Also, Carolina calls Gert about Chase, which later on causes Gert to figure out the whole thing, like everything that had happened. And also, later on, Gert looks at her phone and she's like, oh, hey, Chase tried to call me first, but I didn't answer. And then called her. So maybe I'm more important than Carolina is. So then Carolina picks up Gert and also the raptor, and they head over to Chase's. But as they arrive there, an expensive car arrives as well because Jonah's here, baby. Who called him? Tina. Tina's the one who called him. And Victor can be revived as long as we have another sacrifice. And that sacrifice, why not let it be the one who caused the mess in the first place, that being Janet. And this is kind of where the episode lost me a little bit, like after this, because now there's a big argument about who actually gets to be sacrificed in order for Victor to live. Because Jonah's like, I don't care who dies. And I'm like, neither do I. But one of you has to die so that, because Victor is the only one that actually matters in my plan. None of you matter outside of Victor. He is the most important one of everyone. And I'm like, okay, cool. So who's gonna die? So then later on, Robert eventually convinces Janet because Janet doesn't want to go until Jonah is like, hey, if you don't go, your son's gonna go. Then she's like, I'm all in. But then Robert is like, can I have a couple of minutes alone with her? And he's like, yeah, sure, you got to. So he then tells her, like, you should at least say goodbye to your son. So she goes over to Jonah to ask if she can say goodbye. And at that point, Robert is like, you know what? I already lost Amy. It might as well be me who gets sacrificed. But Tina isn't necessarily okay with that, and with her magic staff destroys the box. At which point, Jonah doesn't get mad at all. Like, what are you talking about? This guy was like, he is the most important one out of all of you. And then when the box gets destroyed, he doesn't lash out at Tina or anything. He's just like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, what do you mean it's fine? This was supposed to be, like, you wanted this to happen. If you had a backup plan, why didn't you say it before? This is not good. But anyway, he then takes Victor with him. Also, the only ones that I actually did not want to die were the Yorks. Those are the only ones that I do not want to die. They were the ones who I'm like, no. However, I did actually like it when Dale picked up the gun and it was like, where did you get that thing? It was lying on the table. I just picked it up and just pointed at that people. Then later on, he accidentally lets it go off and destroys a piece of glass. Like, I thought that was actually funny. I like Dale. I like the Yorks, what can I say? Also, the description is done, so that means the gang must meet up outside of Molly. And then we have a little bit of an argument because of the fact that for Chase, at least, in order to save his horrible dad, Pride has to exist. And, you know, Alex wants to kill Pride, which is like, yeah, okay, I can see that happening, you know, I understand that completely. But then Chase and also Carolina are against this whole thing because Carolina wants to go the route of using Frank instead. Don't know what she has planned, but maybe she's got something planned because she had a conversation with Frank, but I didn't write it in my notes because of the fact that we never really saw the outcome of that. So maybe she told him about the horrible stuff that Pride has been doing. But Chase eventually gets upset and he grabs the laptop and eventually starts smashing that thing to pieces. So he destroyed our only evidence. And then Molly goes over to the train station. She finds the box, she opens it up, and then she makes me so mad and also makes me feel so old because she pulls out a VHS tape and she's like, what's this? And I'm like, what do you mean, what's that? Come on, dude, I'm not that old. I know what a VHS tape is. I used to have so many VHS tapes. Like, we even used them to record, like, episodes on the TV. But, like, what do you mean you don't know what a VHS is? What is this stupid stuff? Like, come on, dude. I mean, I guess, you know, that's what you get when you were growing up rich. But we were poor, so we had to have the VHS that we had in the family for a while because of the fact that that was the cheap thing to use. And that's how we were able to watch movies and TV series and all that stuff. Because the DVD player was way too expensive. But, like, saying what is this is just, that just makes me want to just cry. It makes me want to cry, what can I say? Anyway, the episode ends with maybe not all being lost because the phone is fully charged and Amy got a message right before, I guess, her death that stated, "He found out, get out of there." So maybe Amy can save us. So 10 years ago, Molly's parents found a special rock at a place, and they instantly decided not to really trust it anymore because of the fact that there's something weird going on about all this stuff. So Leslie basically bombed them. However, Molly was also in that room, but she was saved, and I'm gonna say she was saved by the special rock, and that is probably also how she got her powers. Because I've seen comic book movies, even read a couple in my lifetime, mainly Spider-Man though, but that's usually how that kind of story goes. Special thing causes special power. It's just simple stuff. However, Tina was also a part of it, so infighting and all that stuff. So in present day, apparently in the last episode, Carolina did indeed tell Frank everything, and now she tells him the rest of everything that had happened after that, and he's like, let the adults take care of it. You don't need to worry, I'll handle it. Also, Janet wants Chase to stop asking questions, and the gang isn't really doing all that well. There is some fighting in a way, but also they finally get their name because they're called the Runaways, which everyone hates because it's too dark, but it's like, yeah, well, that's just what happens, right? But the gang isn't really fully together. However, they decide one more dance is going to cheer everything up, and I actually did like the fact that Gert actually had a backbone against the popular girl. I did like that. And also, apparently, Pride has finished building their big drill, and everyone who was part of the Wilders company has been fired, and there's a new security crew here because of the fact that this is something special and needs to stay special. So Molly finally arrives to the crew, and she brings the VHS, which they watch, and it turns out, yes, drilling is actually bad because it could potentially either 1, destroy LA, or 2, blow up the world. And we don't want that to happen. We're not at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 just yet. So instead of now exposing their parents, maybe they should focus on stopping Pride, which a certain group of people have been trying that for years now. And they will cover it by going to the dance. They'll go to the quote-unquote dance, but instead what they're doing is they're gonna go and stop the big drilling machine. So Frank talks to Jonah, which, oh no, that doesn't sound good. And also, Nico and Alex find out that Nico's sister, Amy, actually did not off herself. Instead, she was murdered. So that's fun. And then the Yorks call that other woman, who I have in my notes called Grace, because I think that's as close to her name as I'm gonna get it. However, then Grace tells them about the key and about the fact that the Molly's parents didn't trust them. Otherwise, they would have left the key with them. And also the fact that she herself also doesn't trust them, and that Molly isn't here, and then hangs up. So it's like, oh boy. No, this is not good. Also, Jonah wants a group meeting immediately because he has gotten some information that needs to be stated. So the gang arrive at the party. We got a little bit of romance going on between 4 characters, but in sections of 2. Does that mean that Alex and Molly now need to hook up or not? Because they're kind of the only 2 left of the group. But after romance is done, they head for the construction site. Also, Darius is also at that construction site at the very moment, just watching. So then, at the Pride meeting, Jonah reveals that he knows about the Runaways, boys. He knows about the fact that they know, and about the fact that Molly knew, and also the fact that the Wilders and the Yorks tried to cover it up in order to protect Molly. He knows everything, and he's like, so do you know where your children are? So all of them go back home, and it's like, oh no, Chase took the fisticons. Oh no, Nico took the staff. Oh no, Alex, he took the key card in order to get into the construction site, so now they know where to go. So the gang arrive at the construction site. The problem is there's a guard instantly there when they are like, we can't be caught. Instantly a guard shows up. But then Frank allows them into this construction site while he is next to Jonah, which is kind of like, why would Jonah allow them into the construction site? That makes no sense. So the mystery is still very mysterious. So the gang goes inside, and the plan is simple. We stop the drill. So Chase tries to hack the thing, but he can't do it, so he blasts it with his fistigons. And then also Molly pushes a truck. You know, you guys could be helping, right? Alright? But no, Molly just pushes a truck down the big hole and almost falls in until she gets saved by the squad. And then afterwards, Nico is like, alright, staff, fill up the hole. And while the staff is filling up the hole, eventually the staff vanishes and goes over to Mommy because, yes, the parents are here. And now the big final battle for the finale of this season. Alright, after a long journey, here we are, boys. The finale of Runaways Season 1. And I'll say it was actually pretty good. I very much enjoyed it. So, Old Lace, as she is later on called, tries to join in on the battle. That is the raptor, by the way. However, sadly enough, Dale shoots it with a tranquilizing dart in order to be able to kind of knock it out. So that doesn't really work. Also, Chase and Carolina try to fire their, you know, weapon and also powers. However, Tina has a shield to protect the parents, so that doesn't necessarily work. Then Jonah arrives and he basically blasts all the kids away. However, then Carolina is like, I will stay behind and I will fight them and you guys leave. And initially he's like, no, we won't, but then they do. So Carolina and Jonah attack each other with a big blast that causes a huge blast that basically causes a blackout. Basically, you could say the equivalent of an EMP if you want to. So the Runaways, well, they run away without Carolina. So the next day we need a plan and Alex is like, we should run away, and the rest of the squad is kind of like, no, we should go get Carolina. So that's the next plan, boys. We gotta get her. Tina also reveals to the other parents that Leslie was the one who killed Molly's parents. Also, Pride has Carolina. So we need some new outfits in order to be able to stealthily make it in. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily work though, but whatever. I mean, Molly has the right idea with the whole changing the purple hair to green. I understand that one. It's still, can't you just have like a normal hair color? But whatever. But that is probably like the smarter move. But like the rest of it is like, I'm gonna wear a trench coat. That'll make me invisible. You people are not wearing Superman's hypnotic glasses. So no. You people are not wearing Superman's hypnotic glasses, okay? You can't get away with that. Also, we have to say goodbye to Old Lace because of the fact that it's just too obvious. You know, we can't really hide her all that well, so we gotta say goodbye. Meanwhile, the squad go over to Vaughn from, you know, the church in order to ask him for help. However, he says no. At least for now, he says no. Jonah also tells Carolina that he's her daddy. And Molly and Chase get on a bus in order to secretly infiltrate Pride through, you know, the bus access thing. So we got people on the inside. That's great. The Yorks are also searching the site and Leslie appears later on. However, what they figure out is the fact that there's something alive down in that hole. So it's like, oh boy, that doesn't sound good at all. That is exactly why the kids were trying to stop it, because it's not good. Does that mean that that rock was actually alive or not? So Chase and Molly get picked up by Vaughn, who is now on their side as well, and he is able to get the two past the two women, which I don't really know if they buy it entirely, but they at least, you know, get past. That is the important part. Meanwhile, the Wilders arrive in order to see Carolina because of the fact they want kids back, and Jonah won't let them, so that's a little bit bad. Alex is also going over to steal a vehicle because we need to get away, and we need to get away fast. So Vaughn brings Molly and Chase to the room that potentially Carolina's in, so Molly just breaks down that door, and Vaughn is immediately like, I'm gone. I'm leaving, okay? This is just too weird for me. So they find Carolina, and now it's time to get her out. The problem is they get found out instantly by the two women, so that that's kind of a downside, and now we have to run away from the security guards. And also Chase uses the x-ray goggles, and he sees basically the inside of Jonah, which is like this pure light thing. So maybe that'll come into play into season 2, who knows. So then Alex picks up the squad, and then also picks up the squad on the inside, and they drive away. And Vaughn goes over to Leslie in order to say that Carolina has escaped, and is like, maybe she's part of it, you know, maybe she helped, because Leslie might not be as bad as I initially thought. None of the parents really are as bad. I mean, Victor, he is definitely bad. I mean, Leslie still killed the other parents, so she's not good either, you know? And all the parents still killed those 15 kids, so they're not good either. But, like, maybe not as bad as I initially thought. Because also the Yorks might actually have a way of killing Jonah, which, you know, is a good thing. So Alex is like, how far do you think we're from home? And then he's like, I'm gonna make a phone call. So he leaves in order to make a phone call. He calls Darius, actually, and he's like, the enemy of my enemy is my my friend and all that nonsense. So then Darius accepts the deal. I'll help you, but probably, he'll eventually get something in return from Alex, or, Alex will betray him, or Darius will die. That's also an option now I think about it. So Leslie holds a secret pride meeting without Jonah or the Wilders, but the Wilders did not really want to show up, understandably so. And she basically lays the cards out. It's like, okay, yes, Jonah needs to be stopped. Also, I killed Molly's parents, and also, Jonah was actually the one who killed Amy because of the fact that while Amy was snooping around, Jonah thought maybe she had figured out what Pride was doing, and that's why he killed her. And then Tina's like, so you knew that our daughter was murdered by Jonah, and you kept that a secret this entire time. I am going to murder you if it was not for the fact that I need you in order to get close to Jonah, because that's basically what Leslie says. Also, we get the reveal that the texts they're on to you, run, actually came from Leslie. So Leslie tried to warn Amy, but it did not really work. Also, Frank works with Jonah for Carolina, which that one I'm kind of confused about, but sure, whatever. And also, we learned after that what Darius gave Alex was a roll of cash and also a gun. So he probably wants something in return. So now they're like, okay, we need to leave now, okay? So where are we gonna go? They look at the terminal of like places where they can go. Meanwhile, outside, Gert finds old Lace again, so she's back on the squad. Didn't really take that long. And then on the TV, on WHIH News, we have the fact that apparently, potentially the parents, but let's just say Jonah, framed the Runaways for the murder of Destiny Gonzalez and also the kidnapping of Molly. So now it is time to officially run away. And that is the end of Season 1. And while Season 1 had its ups and downs, I still actually enjoyed it. Now, I actually looked up some people's perspective on this season, and it turns out that the season's perspective is not really that good. People don't really like this season, sadly enough. I mean, comic book fans don't like it because apparently in the comic books, in issue 2 is when the Runaways run away, and here it takes 10 episodes for them to run away. And also, the parents never get the spotlight like they do in the show. Instead, there's like a big reveal that happens at the end of that comic book that ties, I guess, the whole thing together. But we're basically focused on the Runaways. They see it from their perspective, and we'll never learn the parents' perspective until later on. So that's why they're a little bit upset about it. And also, some people just don't like the writing in the show. I actually very much enjoyed this show. I didn't think it was perfect, as you may have noticed with some of the episodes that I've talked about. Mainly that episode where it's like, okay, so who's gonna die for Victor to come back? I found that in that episode where I was just like, I don't care, any one of them could die, except for the couple of people like the Yorks, which I actually did enjoy. Even though, to be honest, Dale is kind of a prick sometimes. And also, he reminds me of the vocalist from Starset, which I may have already said in my review. But he looks just like Dustin from Starset, which I found really funny. But overall, like I said, the season was fun. However, it's not perfect, and I feel like a lot could actually potentially be cut out. If we cut this season down, even just to every episode being like 40 minutes, kind of like Cloak and Dagger, this season would improve potentially a lot. But this is only part 1 of 3, technically, because we have 2 more seasons to go. And that is basically how this was planned as well, for like multiple seasons, because the way that this season ends is like, okay, that's not an ending. That's like, we have to potentially fight back against Jonah in the next season, or maybe even season 3, who knows. But I know that season 3 has like a different villain, a very, very, very hot villain though, a very attractive villain, but still a villain nonetheless. So I don't know if Jonah will survive until season 3, but I'm interested to see where they go. However, the one fear that I have about the next season is the fact that it's like 13 episodes. Why? I already felt like with 10 episodes for Runaways season 1, they kind of stretched it a bit too much. So having the next season be 13 might not be the best idea, especially not if you look at the Netflix model, because 13 episodes kind of don't really work a lot of the times for the Netflix model either. Shaving those down to 10 would be a lot better. So I don't know if Runaways is gonna be the one to actually justify itself like Daredevil season 1 and 3, but who knows? I guess we'll have to find out. But I'm gonna call it a day here for the spoiler talk. So let me know what you guys thought about the Runaways in the comment section down below. Spoiler filled, obviously. And with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if that's already, turn notifications. Don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And I'll see you guys next time when we continue on the Runaway storyline, at least in the MCU order in that sense, because we are now officially done, not just with June for myself. This is actually being recorded on the last day of June. Also, to anyone who has issues with me talking bad about Pride, I have nothing against the gay community, the LGB, nothing against them. It was just too easy of a joke to make, However, Runaways takes place in a way back to back to back. So yeah, this ends in 2017. This is actually in December, taking place in December of 2017. Yes, the weather doesn't always line up, but that is because of when it was filmed. But this takes place officially in December of 2017, and this is the last thing that happens in 2017, because season 2 takes place in 2018. So I'll see you guys maybe next time. I don't know how this upload goes. Something could be slotted in between, but in a way, next time in the MCU for Runaways Season 2. Bye!